back on the big hit here with NHL preview. Jake Taylor, Mike Casa, how you guys doing?
Feeling good, living the dream, look good, feel good, play good.
All that. I feel the same thing. That's
all
right.
All right, let's get right into it. The Washington Capitals finally won their first Stanley Cup. And does this win cement Alex Ovechkin's legacy? And do you think the Caps could do it again this season?
You know what, I say this all the time. I say the NHL, I think hockey's the best sport, but it's the worst league. It's the worst run league. The worst thing they could have done last year, the NHL, was give Alex Ovechkin the Conn Smythe. So they just did that just for his legacy, because if you look at the stats, no players put up numbers like Evgeny Kuznetsov did, except Evgeny Malkin did in 2009, and he won the Conn Smythe. They gave it to Ovechkin just so they could get ratings, just so they can get people talking about Ovechkin, just to make them happy. I'm not saying Ovechkin didn't deserve the Stanley Cup, because well, I don't even know how he got there, considering that was his worst team in the last 3 years. And
which is ironic, yeah.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I don't know. They said he led the team. He led the team in points. He didn't. Not even goals or anything. I mean, it was Kuznetsov who kind of carried that team. It was just a matter of the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning choked. They definitely were going to beat the Vegas Golden Knights.
That team was loaded, man. Oh my God. When they got
Tampa
Callahan.
Bay was loaded, yeah, I know. And so I guess it's a testament to Ovechkin to say that he could have beat them. He beat the Demons and the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is it's no surprise. You can't play a team 3 years in a row.
We'll give you one.
Yeah. We'll give you one. Jeez Louise, oh my goodness. We beat you how many years back too? I mean, it's statistically impossible for a team that good to choke year after year after year. It's about time that all the marbles fall into place and he gets it. So I still think Ovechkin's a huge choke. He's a huge, I mean, he's the best goal scorer of all time, but he's a huge playoff choke. He's not a good team leader. Sure, you can get pumped up and jump against the glass when you score a goal, but what's that saying?
Yeah. Dude, so how many President's Trophies? They had so many President's Trophies.
Yeah,
all he does is just sit in his little circle at the top of the circle and just rips it from in the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only thing he solidified was that he wasn't the greatest player to go without winning a championship. Yeah. Because Dan Marino still holds that title now. Alex Ovechkin was up there. I agree with you. I think there's a whole lot of stats behind it. I haven't gone behind the numbers. I'm not a big numbers guy, terrible at math. But there's something that goes behind. He can actually beat Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring. The amount of goals that he has, it's kind of ridiculous that he can do that. But I think I was gonna say it gives him a lot of credit. They played with like soccer shin pads back in the day, so.
Yeah, I agree with that, because when you look at the team around him, I mean, sure, you can look at the winners in years past whose legacy got cemented, like Sidney Crosby, but he went back-to-back Conn Smythe, back-to-back Stanley Cups, World Cup MVP.
Team guy, just all team stuff.
Yeah, you can say, Malkin carried him, Malkin had a bunch of points. Sure, but they don't play on the same line. So when Crosby's producing, he's producing himself. When Ovechkin's producing, it's Nicholas Backstrom, who's definitely the most underrated player in NHL history. There's only I don't know the specific number right now, but there's only other player than Sidney Crosby to average how many points a season is Nicholas Backstrom. Yep. He's the highest. He's just consistent year after year. He's the best passer, and bar none in the NHL. So when you have the best goal scorer getting assists from the best passer in NHL, I mean,
something's gotta happen. It's like everybody that plays with Crosby, they're gonna look really good. Like who knows how Conor Sheary's gonna look in Buffalo?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only thing that he solidified in his his only legacy is that he's a great goal scorer. I think that's everybody's gonna know him for that. The only thing that they're not gonna know him for is that he didn't win a championship because he won it. So. Yeah. That's where I am with Washington.
Yeah, Alex Ovechkin, definitely one of the best goal scorers of our generation, but like you guys said, he's probably the most selfish player in the league. But moving on, the Vegas Golden Knights made a miracle run at the Stanley Cup last season and stepped up their game a few weeks ago, acquiring Max Pacioretty from Montreal. Does Vegas have what it takes to contend again this year?
Shout out to Elliott. He called it last year. He said Vegas was going to be good. However, I was a Vegas doubter, Vegas hater. And the only reason why they made it that far is because the West sucked. They were bad last year, and the only chance they stood to win any game against any team that came out of the East was that game one, because they had that Vegas luck at home. I think that's dying out. Of course, they just signed Max Pacioretty. He kind of only came over for some players like Shea Theodore. They just paid him too, good defenseman, but. Nate Schmidt is suspended. They lost James Neal. William Karlsson won't do it again. You can't have one season scoring 11 points, the next one scoring 90-something points, and then what's that?
And then continue that run next year. Yeah,
I mean, you see it year after year in any sport. You just have the one-hit wonders. I don't think William Karlsson's going to do it again. I'm sure he'll be consistently average, but I'm not saying he's going to be league MVP like he was in contention for this past year. So I think, especially too in the West, I think the team's got a little bit better. better. I think San Jose got better. I think Winnipeg's more complete. They're more experienced now.
A lot more size, goal scoring.
I think Nashville can do well. So I think Vegas, I think they hit it hot last year. I think they can make a playoff team if Fleury plays like he did, because it was Marc-Andre Fleury or bust last year.
Anyone that has Fleury is really in playoff contention if you really think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing. Like, I don't know. You even see it in the NFL with rookies of the year. What happened to like Deshaun Watson? He's playing mediocre.
Yeah, exactly.
And RG3 got hurt. You see it all around. I could name a couple others. I can't name off the top of my head, but you see that. I think the same thing is happening with Vegas, and I was going to go off of that because nobody really knew what to expect. Everybody thought they were going to do mediocre, maybe win like 25 games or 30 games or something, be at the bottom of the board. And now that San Jose got Erik Karlsson, stud, and they're just going to kill. They got a lot of talent coming in the West. Winnipeg is just everybody top to bottom is just ridiculous.
I think Winnipeg has the best chance at winning the
West. That's what I said last year.
This year.
And so when you say contender, I think playoffs. I think wild card. Stanley Cup, I don't think so. I think these teams know what to expect with Vegas. They see a lot of speed. I mean, the same thing when the Penguins set the pace with speed. They won 2 straight Stanley Cups. Nobody knew how to keep up with that. And in Vegas, that's exactly what they did with GM that went over from Washington, and he's like, we're just going to be the Penguins, and they did it perfect, and they went that far. But
that's how it is. In the West, it's big bodies hitting hard, gritty hockey, and in the East, it's speed trumps all. It's speed and skill. And obviously, a Vegas Knights team and coming in the West, doing what won Stanley Cups in the years past from the East, they're just going to dominate the West. They're going to meet up with the Capitals, who experienced that game style before, and they're just going to wipe their butts with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm at. Playoffs, maybe at the bottom. Stanley Cup now.
All right. Speaking of the expansion teams, Seattle has moved one step closer to becoming the next destination for an NHL team. What are your thoughts on another likely expansion team in the league?
I like it a lot. I mean, NHL, like I mentioned before, my favorite. Hockey's my favorite. I think NHL needs to start taking steps in the right direction. I think with Vegas, it was great for them. The ratings definitely went up. Vegas is a huge city. I think Pete Carroll is going to need a job by the end of this year too, so he might go all slice them up and shoot some pucks around, start trying to coach that. Yeah. But I love it. I mean, Seattle, sure. I mean,
they're a great sports city.
Great sports city.
12th man.
12th man. Exactly. And so I think it's good. Anything to boost up the NHL, anything to keep it competitive, anything like that, I'm going to love. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be excited to see it. I'll probably be a hater like I was against Vegas too, because that's just kind of what I do. So
Elliot will probably have Seattle. He'll probably take them. But
and they'll probably go.
I don't know. It's kind of ironic. Like Bettman always wants to grow. He doesn't want to grow the sport. He always talks about it. But what did he do? Pulled out of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And then they had the World Cup of Hockey. He doesn't really expand anywhere. Doesn't want to do anything. NFL's going all across the world. Like, I don't know. It's really cool that we have Seattle, and it's really cool because they're going to be called the Krakens. I think that'd be pretty cool. Those jerseys are going to look really sick. But, I don't really know where I'm at with that. I'm really excited, but the NHL as a whole, I don't know really how far I could go with Bettman there.
Yeah.
So.
The Pittsburgh Penguins came up short last year of a three-peat, but still look very strong. Can they make it 3 out of 4?
Oh, certainly. Oh, most definitely. You can't do 3 in a row in modern sports.
It's almost impossible.
It is.
It's almost impossible.
I mean, they're human beings, you know.
We just took a rest. We took a break. Yeah,
we took a rest. And you saw, we saw that the interviews with Sidney Crosby, the preseason, he was pissed. He was mad that he didn't get that they lost. He was upset.
But he still got laser focused. Like
exactly.
Still works hard. It's ridiculous, you know.
My favorite quote, I can't even quote it. It's not even a quote, but the All Access behind the Showtime series. Yeah. I watched that when the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. And the first time they won the Stanley Cup, they were they're filming this on the on the plane ride home back to Pittsburgh, and they're celebrating. And Mike Sullivan says, "I'm sorry, but all I can keep thinking about is how we can do it again next year."
Yeah.
That's epic. Yeah. That's just epic. You know, if you have a coach like that who just won the Stanley Cup, 8 hours later, he's thinking about winning the year after that. And the whole team's like that. The whole team has a mindset like that. I mean, that's all they take. They're role players. They take pay cuts. They'll do whatever it takes. They take pucks to the face, play the next shift. They'll do whatever. The Penguins, with a leader like Mike Sullivan and Sidney Crosby, I feel like they can go the distance with Matt Murray healthy and hopefully he had some family issues this season. He took a big break. Goaltenders are a little mentally unstable at some point. So I think Matt Murray comes back healthy. We have a great backup goalie with the Smith and Jari fighting for a spot. I think
Jari had spots too, and he looked really good.
Yeah.
And I think if you can go from, what was it, 07, 08, 08, 09 with Detroit, wait all that time when LA and Chicago went at it, and then you can win it 2 Stanley Cups, go to, I think it's no question. We can take off a year. We can win another one. And when you bring in Jack Johnson, I don't think we were lacking. I thought it was our weakest point though, when we didn't have too much defense. Jack Johnson brings a whole lot to the table. I think he was kind of living under Seth Jones' shadow, because Seth Jones is just a monster. And when you have Jack Johnson just does his job. When you said about everybody doing everything, blocking puck, everybody just does their job. I mean, I get we have the best offense, I think, in the league, the best talent offensively. But when everybody does their job, when you have a farm system, when you have Mike Sullivan at coach and the farm system that you have with Connor Sheary and Jake Gensel and bringing all those guys up, you just plug in guys where they need to be and what they need to do and tell them what they do and they'll do it. Sidney Crosby leads the team. It's just when you have Crosby as a cornerstone, I mean, the rest is history,
And
So
playoff experience, clutch experience.
All that.
We have Brassard, Kessel, Malkin, Crosby, Letang. I mean, they just do what's got to be done.
I think Kessel has a phenomenal year too. Yeah. I think he left last year a little salty. I think.
Yeah, he was a little upset.
I think in the playoffs he's going to look really good. We're already looking at playoffs.
Yeah, it's almost barring disaster, maybe the apocalypse. Jeez Louise.
But even the first time we won it, we weren't even projected to go to the playoffs. We were like the bottom tier of the whole East, and then we bounced back and won it.
I think it has to be a complete bombshell for them not to make the playoffs.
They're a really resilient team. I like a lot of them.
You won't catch me on the big head on that.
All right, so the Philadelphia Flyers also made the playoffs last season, only to lose in the first round. Can Phillies stay above the other fringe contenders in the Eastern Conference?
No, they just can't do it. I mean, they're bottom of the pack. They say, Shane Gosper's going to have another breakout year. Well, matter of fact, when he won Athlete of the Year in Philadelphia, and the same day he was scratched 2 years ago because that's how bad he was. The same day he won Athlete of the Year or whatever. So Shane Gosper, I mean, that's their only hope. I don't think Claude Giroux put up, he had over 100 points. Everyone was high on that. He's not going to repeat that. I mean, that's rare for him. Dude. I mean, I'm not a big Giroux guy. I'm kind of a Voracek guy, but he turns the puck over like crazy. Their goaltending is ludicrous. It is just terrible. It is literally just might as well put
their entire defense is pretty garbage. Their entire team. I'm surprised they even made the playoffs last year because they're just not a complete team whatsoever.
I think they only made it because the bottom of that East is just terrible.
It was just terrible. It was just a dogfight.
I don't think they were good. I think they just barely made it because everybody else is bad. Philly's one of those teams where they just kind of middle of the draft, middle of the league. They're just always sitting in the middle. They're never. You see teams like Buffalo. Yeah, they just get by every year. Nothing really goes on. Nothing. They don't really surprise. I mean, first round. There's nothing going on there. They got some talent. They got obviously Voracek and all them, but in the postseason they haven't done anything, and that's what everybody looks at. So
it's almost like sometimes we're at practice, and the goalie doesn't show up. He shows up late, so you put the trash can in front of the net, and sometimes the puck goes in. Sometimes
for Philly, you might as well do that every game. You might as well do that every game.
It's pretty much the same.
And then you go throwing Gritty, that dude. Jeez,
oh boy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that guy. So to paint a picture for everybody, Gritty is their new mascot. Looks absolutely atrocious, and rather than putting a graphic
that's an understatement.
Oh my God, he looks like the animal from the Muppets. Like case in point, like exactly. Gossamer, credit Nick Dudowski, he pointed that out. But if he was like, he really let himself go and he peaked in high school like that. Like that's what I'm talking about. He looks like Carrot Top with the hair and everything. Zach Galifianakis beard, Lorax mustache.
He looks like the Flyers haven't won the Stanley Cup in 60 years.
You can say that too. Looks like Brent Burns kind of. If Brent Burns had red hair, because he's got that raggedy ass beard and then he's got the hair up top, and then he looks like Jake Voracek. I mean, the guy from Philly itself. So it's bad in Philly. It's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad all around. But who is your sleeper team entering the season?
My sleeper team, I gave a lot of time to think about this. I slept on it, and I woke up, and I had a dream about it, hence the sleeper pick. And I think the Dallas Stars are going to be a good team. I think Dallas Stars, they disappointed last year, disappointed the year before in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs the year before. Jamie Benn won the Art Ross Trophy 3 years ago. He really turned it up. They just paid Tyler Seguin a ton of money. I think he's going to be focused. They have about 11 first-round picks on that team right now. Ben Bishop's their goaltender, solid goaltending. They have good defense. I mean, maybe not the bottom two defensemen, but I mean they're solid up top. They got Jason Spezza. They have Alexander Radulov.
A lot of talent, yeah.
They have Sagan. They have Jimmy Benn. Jimmy Benn, I think, other than I think Jimmy Benn's up there with Stamkos and Ovechkin for pure just goal scorers in the NHL. I think if Jimmy Benn wants to put the puck in the back of the net, he can do it with ease. That wrist shot's deadly. I really like this I like Dallas coming out of the West too. They think they got speed. I think they got what it takes. And I guess out of the West, that's going to be my.
I was going to say it's just being in the West. They're kind of screwed being in the West.
Yeah, but I think they were the most surprising team not to make the playoffs in the West.
I thought I had them playing, dude. I bet on them, and I lost a lot of money that they didn't make it. Yeah, I was kind of, but I picked a team. My angle with this was I was going just a team that was trash last year. And you can only get better, you hope. But so I had Buffalo. I think Buffalo makes some noise because I said earlier, I don't think there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of terrible teams, which is why Philly made it. I think Philly's going to be terrible. Carolina's always on the brink. Yeah. Columbus could lose. They could lose Panarin. I think he wants out. He wants to be traded. Yeah. So when you got teams like that, I think the only thing they lack, they lost Ryan O'Reilly.
That's big.
And
well, he wanted out of there bad.
I know. But the
retired.
whole league's about being deep at the center position, which is what the Pens did. Not a big deal. And so they've got Jack Eichel, pretty big deal.
Patrick, probably a top 10 player in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Really young too. They got a lot of talent there. Patrick Berglund, the veteran presence. Yeah. The Penguins missing piece, something like that. Scott Wilson, Connor Sheary, Jeff Skinner at the left wing. Jeff Skinner that they got from Carolina.
That's a good pickup.
He's a stud. Yeah, and so. And then on defense, you got Rasmus Dahlin and Ristolainen. Yeah. Young guys, a lot of potential.
Young guys.
Haven't seen Dahlin yet, but best guy in the draft by far. So they could tear it. The only thing is goalie too. So they just got to piece together some stuff. Maybe sell a couple guys at the trade deadline, get a goalie in. Carey Price from Montreal. All those.
That's a big price for Carey Price.
Those teams are blowing up. Yeah, with Ottawa too. But you never know, man. If they can get rid of Erik Karlsson and get something for that, maybe they can get Carey Price. But so I got Buffalo.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. The East is going to be good, especially. I think the East is going to be
good. Yeah, a lot of talent, especially the Metropolitan.
Toronto's going to come up there in that division too.
Yeah.
All right, great stuff, guys. We'll be back on the big hit with the NBA Roundtable after this break.
When I was in high school, I didn't know where I wanted to go to college. But I did know I wanted a major with job potential, and a campus that felt like the right place for me. I chose IUP. I'm studying on a beautiful campus with great professors who focus on student success and 140 academic majors. I'm Megan Spangler. I study nursing. Find your success at IUP.
We're here with the NBA Roundtable, Jeff Hart, Garrett Clark, Nick Dodowski, and Joey Sinaway. How are you guys feeling?
Good. Can't complain.
All right. The big storyline this summer was, of course, LeBron James going to LA. What are your thoughts on the move, and how will this affect the Western Conference?
Well, I feel like LeBron is going to be a shift for the West somewhat because it's going to really push him or put pressure on him because the West is the division that's like really top dog compared to the East because the East is like the weak end of it. So this will be his test. Like, is this his legacy or not? That's really, is this going to make or break him pretty much?
Let me interject right there. When you talk about making or breaking his legacy, I don't think LeBron has anything to prove. I think that's why he went to LA. When you're talking about a guy who was 7th all-time in points, 11th all-time assists, 3 NBA titles, MVPs, he has nothing to prove. He's already proved what he needed to. He's considered probably the 2nd greatest player in all time, to a lot of people, not everyone. Yeah. He moved. It was a benefit to him because he gets to move to Hollywood, nice weather city, great for his family. And I mean, for the Lakers,
too.
And I mean, for the Lakers fans, it's obviously a bonus because when you go back 3 years, they were 17-65. They improved to 26-56. Then they were 35-47 last year. And I mean, when you add LeBron and then JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley, Rajon Rondo, you can only get better from there. And when you have them, as well as Kuzma, Ingram, Lonzo, and a bunch of those young guys that can improve from them, I don't see how you could go wrong. I think it's a solid start to making the Lakers a force to be reckoned with again.
My thing with LeBron James is I think he understands where he is in the league now, where the league is at this moment with the Golden State Warriors just being an absolute monster squad. I think he just understands that he had to go west because now he can get out in the first round, lose to the Lakers, and instead of playing the entire playoffs just to lose to the Warriors regardless. So I think he just kind of wanted to. It was be right, like you said earlier, Jeff. Better for him, better quality of life out in LA.
I think at this stage of his career, it's great for him because he's playing with a lot of guys with a high ceiling, and LA also has a history of bringing in guys with big names, big ticket guys. So not just this season, but I think for the future of his career, he's not going to be the best player in the world for his whole career, but as of now, he's still the best player in the world. You pair him with a guy like Kawhi Leonard next summer in 2019, I think that the Lakers give the Warriors a run for their money.
Moving on, the star of the Timberwolves, Jimmy Butler, has requested a trade from Minnesota, and which team would benefit most from his acquisition and why?
I feel like he should go to the Knicks. I know Jeff's thinking like the Knicks, but I think that would be the best ideal because they would be having a better shooting guard and all that. The Nets, I don't know, honestly. The Nets,
They got nothing to offer.
yeah, besides D'Angelo Russell, that's really the only thing they have right now.
I think his whole philosophy is he just wants to go back home at this point. Go back to New York. But yeah, like you said, they don't really have either team doesn't really have much to offer as far as assets go.
No, not really, because they don't. All they have is Kristaps Porzingis for the Knicks. Like I said, the Nets only have like D'Angelo Russell. That's it, and maybe Spencer Whittle, but Dinwiddie. But besides that, there's not much there.
No, I mean, I don't blame you for getting his name wrong. He's not that much of a great player anyway, so we don't need to get his name right. As a Knicks fan, I appreciate that, but I'm also a realist when it comes to the NBA. The prime location that Jimmy Butler needs to enhance his career. I think that man, as a career 22-point scorer, last year, 24 points the year before, I mean, I think you could make a difference anywhere when you got a guy with the work ethic as Jimmy Butler who has had to work his way up his whole career. And he's sick of the guys on the Timberwolves because he says Andrew Wiggins does it for the money and Karl Anthony Towns pads his stats. Whether or not that's true, Jimmy sees it that way. I think the team that would benefit the most would be the Clippers because they have assets to offer like Lou Williams, Tobias Harris, and then first-round picks. And also, he'll be the guy. He's in a big market city. And then you got to think next year for Kawhi Leonard, he says he wants to go to LA. Now, we don't know which team. He hasn't really specified. They say the Clippers, but you don't know how valid that is. But when you can say, hey, we got an all-star, we got Jimmy Butler here, we got a great owner in Jerry West, and a young core of guys, I think he could really benefit that team in a lot of ways.
Yeah, what about Kawhi, though, if he, decides to stay with Toronto? Because there's already talk that he wants to stay with Toronto, and he loves the city already.
That could always happen, but for any free agent, because you got a loaded class next year. You got Boogie Cousins, you got Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Kyrie, you got all those guys. You have a better chance, and even if you don't get any of them, you're better in your team, because what do they have now? They lost DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul. There's nothing really there.
Yeah,
so, I mean, at least if you have Jimmy Butler, that's getting people and selling tickets to the team.
Yeah, the Clippers need to bring in someone because you have to compete with LeBron now in LA. So you need to bring in a big money player to kind of fill that void on your team to bring in, those Clippers fans. So
Jimmy Butler, he has been a number 2 option on every team, barring the latter years of his Chicago tenure. He's always been a number 2. If he wants to enhance his stats, I recommend him going to either the Los Angeles Clippers, like Jeff said, or the Miami Heat, my favorite squad. Just because he'll automatically come into a system where he's the number 1 option, and he'll pad his stats and his legacy will be better. But if he wants to ring chase, I think his best options are the Los Angeles Lakers, and not the Warriors, obviously, because they definitely can't afford that. But the Toronto Raptors as well. If he signed with them, I think they'd be a force to reckon with in the East for a long time.
I mean, if I may add to that, I think also the 76ers could be a great team for him. If you have Ben Simmons, you got Joel Embiid, and then add Jimmy Butler to the mix, and they have people to offer. You got Rob Covington, you got first-round picks. I mean, and then you have Markelle Fultz in the mix if he comes back healthy. That'd be a team that's instant contender.
Yeah, the Sixers are probably – they might be the biggest question mark, but they are definitely the top team to look out for in years to come.
Yeah, that would definitely put them over the top, I think, acquiring him. But Jimmy Butler, I got a wild card team. Cleveland had a rough summer as far as basketball goes. I think that Jimmy Butler, put him with Kevin Love. Colin Sexton's got a high ceiling. He's a bright young star.
I like it.
And they know how to win. They've been to 4 championships in a row. So, I mean, the East isn't that strong where, they couldn't compete. So I think he'd be a decent fit there, but that's far-fetched. They gave up a lot when LeBron was in town as far as draft pick goes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, meanwhile in Minnesota, Cat, a.k.a. Karl Anthony Towns, signed a Supermax extension with the Timberwolves this week. With or without Jimmy Butler, can the Timberwolves compete this season?
Not really, because you got Derrick Rose as your kind of like almost starter, and he's been injury prone and not been the strongest. You need that point guard position to win games. And also, they don't really have a strong power forward. I don't even think I know who their power forwards are.
Taj Gibson.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a rough one. They need to at least get someone in there to help out more if they get rid of Jimmy Butler.
I'm going to go last.
I personally think that Karl Anthony Towns is a child. I don't think he is a leader in the locker room. I think that they had a high ceiling as of last offseason. This offseason, it's a total mess. It's absolute chaos in the locker room. Tom Thibodeau has zero control over them, and
So are they the Steelers of the NBA?
No, because the Steelers are actually going to win and make the playoffs this year, as opposed to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
No one thought the Timberwolves were going all the way.
Right.
Yeah, the Wolves look good on paper, but nobody's competing with Golden State. Then you had LeBron into the West now, and you got the Rockets. The Jazz looked good last season. Donovan Mitchell went off. I mean, what Gobert, he's solid, one of the best centers in the game. So that Western Conference, man, there's not too many teams that can compete with them. I'd say Golden State runs the table.
All right.
So I figured most people would disagree with me on this. I think they can actually take a step forward. Here's why. I took the time to look up the stats on some of these guys. Karl Anthony Towns, career 22-point scorer, almost 1.5 blocks a game, and averaged about 10 rebounds a game. Former
He
rookie of the
averages
year.
about a double-double.
A double
each season.
every game, every season. Wiggins, 20-point scorer, 45% field goal percentage from the field. And that's with Jimmy Butler in the mix. You take that guy out and then add maybe some threats like a Lou Williams or Tobias Harris or whatever a team's going to offer him. And you pointed out Derrick Rose. They also have Jeff Teague, so that there may not be an all-star at the point position, but they do have depth as far as experienced players that know how to play, because Jeff Teague is definitely a dead-eye shooter. But I think when you take Jimmy...
I think he's underrated.
He is very underrated, and he knows how to run the floor. He knows how to run the floor. He's been in the league a long time.
Floor general,
Yeah.
Good playmaker.
And when you look at that and you take away a guy like Jimmy Butler, now we're just hearing his side of the story. We're just hearing how Karl Anthony Towns only cares about his stats. Wiggins is selfish and wants to play for the money. We haven't heard from their perspective. Who knows? Maybe Jimmy Butler was infecting the locker room. Maybe his reasons might be right, but that might be infecting the locker room when you got a guy calling out other players saying how bad they are. They're not gonna play the same. The chemistry is gonna be off. I think Thibodeau is a great coach. I think he's very underrated. If you look at what he did with the Bulls, they were great when they had him. He left. Not the same team, and yeah, you can blame that on Derrick Rose or whatever you want to blame it on, but I think he's a great coach, and I think the Timberwolves, they're not going to go all the way. I think the West is too stacked, but I do think they have what it takes to be competitive and maybe get to the semis, or if they were lucky, the conference finals if they were lucky.
All right, so Super Kawhi Kawhi Leonard is the newest superstar in Toronto. Can the Raptors finally get over the hump in the Eastern Conference?
I'll say this, they do have a chance. Boston is definitely the main threat coming out of the East this year for sure, but Toronto...
Especially with Gordon Hayward coming back, so right. I don't know if he's going to be completely healthy, but just the factor of him being back is a great sign.
I would say also that Kawhi Leonard is a better player, overall player, than DeMar DeRozan, so and through the trade they got Danny Green too. I think their team is just deeper this year, and they could definitely have a chance to win the East this year for sure.
Well, Kawhi brings this side of defense, to be honest. And Kawhi, that Raptors team did not have a defense at all, really, with either DeMar DeRozan or even Kyle Lowry.
You don't think DeRozan's a good two-way player?
Not as good as I don't think he's definitely not as good as Kawhi.
Kawhi's the best two-way player in the game.
Kawhi is defensive player of the year just about every year, but
that's a given.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we got to take into account with Kawhi, only until 2014 did he average 20 points a game or more. He developed into that great two-way player.
Exactly.
So you got to give him credit for giving that work ethic, and that's why people give Kawhi the credit that he has, because he developed that two-way play.
I honestly feel that the Raptors needed a defensive side to them, because they were always, I don't know why, just could not stop LeBron at all on the defensive side. So that's why I think Kawhi will help, even though LeBron's not in the East anymore.
Yeah.
He's going to give you at least something against Boston with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. And even those Terry Rozier or even Jason Tatum, those players were starting to come out during the playoffs when both of those players were injured during the playoffs.
What I would have liked to see from the Raptors is Kawhi Leonard and Dwayne Casey meeting up and just seeing what would have happened there. I mean, you're talking about a former coach of the year this past year in Dwayne Casey, who went to Detroit. and they fired him. I would like to see what happened there.
So I'm going to hop in now just because you've all hit on separate points. I think the Raptors can go all the way. I don't think they will, though. I think they can because LeBron's gone. LeBron was the Raptors' bugaboo. He was the reason that they could not get out of the East. I mean, every year people were like, oh, are the Raptors going to do it this year? Oh, the Raptors, they got it. Because on paper, the Raptors are stacked. You got DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Jonas Valanciunas. You got depth. I mean, you have everything you need to go all the way. You had a great coach in Dwayne Casey, but that's the thing. People aren't taking into account when you get rid of the key guy in that locker room, DeMar DeRozan, looked at by all the people of Canada who like basketball, because you got to think you have that whole country on your side. It's not just, Toronto, because that's all Canada has. That's their only NBA team. And when you get rid of the all-time point leader for your team and considered the best Raptor ever and get rid of him for a guy who doesn't even want to be there, he wants to be in LA, I think that messes with the chemistry. And Kyle Lowry didn't even comment when they asked him about it. So you have to worry about the chemistry, and not only that, you're going to have a new coach there that's going to introduce a new system that the players are going to have to learn. So they have to get over chemistry and then also a new coaching system. So if they can do it, I think Kawhi Leonard, like everyone said, is a far better all-around player because he's a better two-way player than DeMar DeRozan.
Best player in the East now.
Yeah, probably. But I'd probably give it to Giannis, but definitely in the top three.
Top two.
Top 2, 3. But I think for those reasons, they won't come out of the East, but it's possible if they can overcome the adversity.
Yeah, I could agree with that because, team chemistry might be off, and Boston's bench is just too stacked, man. They're deep. They got depth because a lot of guys had to step up last year due to injury, and now the guys in front of them are back healthy. So be interesting to see what Boston can do this year, I think.
All right, so speaking of the Eastern Conference, who is your pick to go out of that conference into the final this year?
Easily the Boston Celtics. They're starting 5. Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and Gordon Hayward. But Gordon Hayward and Kyrie both coming back from injury. Plus their deep bench, they got Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, Aaron Baines. They easily are going to win the East this year, I think. I don't see how you could. They almost won the East last year without Kyrie and Gordon. I think this year there's no question they're going to win the East. They're the Warriors of the East, I'd say.
I got to go with either Boston or Toronto. Those would be my 2 picks because I don't know why I just feel like Toronto with Kawhi now is just at least somewhat better than when they were with DeMar DeRozan. Just because, like I said before, was Leonard having that defensive side that's going to at least help out against like those players like Gordon Hayward or even Kyrie Irving a little bit better than they had with DeMar DeRozan.
All right, I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here because I think everyone's overlooking this team. I'm going Philadelphia. Here's why. And I think for all the reasons everyone said, Boston is a stacked team. You got Kyrie, you got Gordon Hayward, you got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. On paper, they're unstoppable. They could compete with the Golden State Warriors. However, I think Philadelphia got a little bit of a wake-up call last year. They didn't go as deep as everyone thought they were. Everyone said them and Boston were going to go all the way.
I think they went farther than most people thought.
See, actually, and everyone I talked to, or at least I thought they could have went all the way, in all honesty, because and now people are forgetting Markelle Fultz is going to come back. I think Markelle Fultz is an amazing player. If you see his workout videos, he fixed
his shooting form. It looks a little bit. It looks like he had his shooting form back in college.
All NBA players post videos and them putting up 5 threes in a row. Dwight Howard's posting summer shooting. Anyone can post shooting.
Regardless
of that, this
was
a broken form. This was a terrible form, and you can see the difference very distinctly between his shooting form during the year when he was playing, before he got injured, and now. And it's completely different.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, and regardless, even without Markelle Fultz, they still got really deep in the season, and they did get to the playoffs. And I think every team, especially a young team, when you got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, who are still young, they're developing. If Ben Simmons could develop a jump shot, he would easily be a top 5 player in the league. Him and Giannis, if they developed a jump shot ever, forced to be reckoned with. They still are, but they still got to work on that range. However, they're young, up and coming, and they got a little bit of playoff experience. It's hard for a team that is comprised of young players like Fultz, like Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, or Covington. You got a lot of young guys there that don't have playoff experience. And when they finally get that, they got another year to develop. I think they can go further. And when you're saying Boston has Kyrie and Hayward, Kyrie's injury prone. I'm sorry, he is, and I love Kyrie. I agree. I love Kyrie. I want him to come to New York free agency time, and Hayward. We'll see how he plays. It's hard to come back from a terrible injury like that. I think he'll still be useful. I just don't know if he'll be the Hayward we all remember, the one that can score 20-plus points a game and be that offensive threat that they need. I mean, Jason Tatum's still great. Rozier or Jaylen Brown are still forces. However, we'll see. Late in the season, like we said, Kyrie tends to get hurt, and we'll have to see where they go.
Yeah, I like what you said, Jeff, and I just want to add one more thing, and I like the one sleeper team coming out of the East is definitely the Milwaukee Bucks this year. Giannis, his ceiling is through the roof. They call him the Greek Freak for a reason. And I think that it's just a deep team coming into the season, and yeah, look out for them.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I definitely got Boston too. I mean, like you said, I think the key for Boston to make it to the finals would be to rest Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. Don't worry about playoff seeding because you know that you're the best team in the East. More focus on keeping those guys right for when the playoffs actually come. So.
All right, guys, great stuff. That was the NBA preview. We'll be back after this short break.
I fell in love with the campus, with the people, with my IUP life. See it for yourself. Visit us. Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Find your success.
Jake Slobotnik, Josh Nist. This is the NFL. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing ecstatic. You know, Steelers actually won a game.
Oh, finally. An exciting Thursday night comeback saw Baker Mayfield and the Browns get their first win in almost 2 years. With Mayfield being named the starter for this week, what's your outlook on the Browns for the rest of the season?
They're going to look stronger than the last time they had their last win. I mean, yeah, you got Carlos Hyde in the backfield putting up some great numbers. You got Baker Mayfield. Finally, they gave him a chance to play. I'm glad he finally got named the starter. I was waiting for that for weeks. He looked great in the preseason, and then during this week, absolutely lighting it up in the second half. Granted, he didn't have any passing touchdowns, but I mean, put up some great numbers nonetheless. Again, Carlos Hyde, and you got Jarvis Landry, and I'm still waiting for the new tight end, David Njoku, to wake up. I think he's going to put some spectacular numbers on the board and helping contributing to Cleveland's success. Not saying that they're going to be a playoff contender team. I definitely think they're going to have a winning season or even a 500 season. They're definitely going to look a lot stronger than last year.
Well, they can't quite have a 500 season unless you consider the tie like an obsolete number, but yeah, nonetheless.
Everyone wins in a tie.
Everyone wins in the tie. There
I think everyone loses, but my thing with the Browns is they're confident now. Like, they tied the Steelers week 1, which was a huge success for them. Now with this win, I think they're gonna be fired up heading into next week. I think Baker Mayfield is he got his first game out of the way, he came back, so I think he's prepared. He's gonna be ready to rock and roll.
201 yards in his debut, and especially coming in the second half.
Exactly.
No one just comes out and puts 201 yards up, or 201 yards up in the stat category. You just don't do that.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield is something different. You know, Heisman winner, first overall draft pick. He is looking great to start off the season.
As long as Cleveland doesn't mess up, I think he's gonna be the franchise quarterback for this team. And I think once the Bens, Daltons, Flaccos, once they're done, I think Baker Mayfield's gonna run this division.
All right, so moving on. Carson Wentz made his return in Week 3 for the Eagles, leading them to a win over the Colts. What do you think of Wentz's performance with him back under center, and can he remain a contender throughout the season?
He looked a little sloppy starting off his first game back, but again, I mean, he's coming off the injury reserve. He did look good, I'm not going to lie, but I mean, a 20-16 win against the rebuilding Colts, not impressive, definitely a start, and I think he can build off of it. I think the Eagles could make another playoff push, maybe not Super Bowl champs again, sorry Bird Gang, but I mean, not a Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, I believe last week I said I think there's some bad juju in Philadelphia, and I'm going to get Carson Wentz some slack this week because it was first game back. But I'm just saying, I don't think he can perform like this again if they want a chance of, being a legit team.
All right, so the Pittsburgh Steelers earned their first victory of the season Monday night over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a 30-27 shootout. Ryan Fitzpatrick may have lost, but still threw for 411 yards. What are your thoughts on these two teams following this game?
I like what I see from both these teams. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he did what he needed to do. You can't really blame him for that loss. I think Tampa Bay, they're still going to be fine. I think they're still a playoff team. As for the Steelers, I think the worst is behind them. I think last week or last 2 weeks, that was really a wake-up call for them. I think after all the shenanigans, all the roasts on social media, I think that got their heads. They realized they need to cut the crap and just play football.
I agree with you. I think the Steelers put the worst behind it. Fitzmagic is over. Honestly, I think the nickname.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you look at it this way.
It was over week 1. I mean,
I can see where you're coming from with that.
Fitzmagic doesn't exist unless he succeeds throughout the entire season. Fitzmagic doesn't exist.
Well, here's the thing. Steelers were a playoff team last year. Quite honestly, in my opinion, as a Steeler fan, I definitely would have thought that if he would have came out this week, beat the Steelers, granted, he almost did. They only won by 3, and we thought that fourth quarter, the Steelers were about to give it up. But if you ask me, if he would have came away probably with a 2-score lead, Fitzmagic would have still been in the air. But losing the Steelers by 3, you can't really give Tampa Bay much credit. They are a good team nonetheless. You got Mike Evans, O.J. Howard,
Gerald McCoy.
You got all these good players on Tampa Bay. They're no doubt a stud team. They have been for the past few years. But with Winston's suspension, granted, Fitzpatrick looks really strong. I can't really say they're going to make it far. I do think they're going to do better than the previous years. Steelers, my take is that they're going to look a lot better. I mean, you got, granted, I know how you said about the whole shenanigans thing with Bell and Brown, but you got James Conner in the backfield. I know I brag about Conner a lot, but he's overcome a lot of adversity. Big Ben looked a lot stronger. I mean, look at his numbers. He put up 353 yards and 3 touchdowns this last game. You got to think they're coming back. I mean, and Ben Roethlisberger is still utilizing the entire field of play. He's got Vance McDonald, who really he put the defense in their place
himself on the map that game.
Monster stiff arm. He was using James Washington, the rookie, a lot. Juju Smith-Schuster using more. Brown, I think, was actually ranked 4th yesterday in reception yards and catches and all that. He was not the Antonio Brown we used to see, but it's good to see that Ben is utilizing his entire depth of play. He's not focusing on one player, and I think that's what makes the Steelers' offense, in my opinion, a juggernaut.
Fitzpatrick had 3 interceptions. I think if he had maybe 1 interception or even 0, I think that Tampa Bay would have blew Pittsburgh out of the water because they were driving just about every drive. You didn't see him punt the ball many times, but that Steelers D, although they gave up a lot of passing yards, over 400, they still had a solid performance on defense.
Well, I think that's the big thing is that in the past few weeks, you got to think Tampa Bay came into the game thinking, oh, we got this in the bag. The first 2 weeks, the Steelers secondary looked terrible. They did. They looked so bad. Tying the Browns, no one would have saw that coming. And then losing to the Chiefs, which, granted, Patrick Mahomes is doing great. The Steelers secondary has been known to not really let up that many yards and points in a game. But for them to come out the first 2 weeks of the game, absolutely blow it up. Tampa Bay, I feel like, was playing a little bit lax. The Steelers' offense it proved them wrong, first of all. And you said it yourself, Fitzpatrick, 3 interceptions. The secondary really stepped up their game.
Right, and we see Terrell Adams with that big interception. I think he's really developing his game now, fitting his own person. Really excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, so the Buffalo Bills looked lifeless, which is quite an understatement in the first 2 games. But in Week 3, they demolished the Minnesota Vikings, a Super Bowl contender. Is this a sign that Buffalo is turning a corner? And how bad is this loss for the potential Super Bowl contending Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, I wouldn't cut the Vikings out yet. I think they still have promise. Kirk Cousins, I think he did his job. It's frustrating to see if you're a Vikings fan, not that I am. I'm just saying without the run game, just not present that week, I think just a bad week. I think really there might just be a little bummed out about that tie against Green Bay. Maybe they're just not in the right place.
I agree with that statement fully. You got to look. Last time Minnesota lost in Week 3 was back in 2014 when they played at the Superdome. And we know that the Saints offense is great. They lost that game 20-9. I think it's just a fluke for the Buffalo Bills. I don't see them as a big team. I think they just got a lucky win. So Minnesota's O-line was terrible. The first half, Kirk Cousins barely broke 50 yards passing-wise. They looked a lot stronger the second half, but again, I think it's just an absolute fluke for the Bills. You got LaShawn McCoy questionable in the backfield. Even though I will say this, Chris Ivory, he is a sleeper to watch.
Chris Ivory, he was solid when he was with the Jets for a couple of years. He's actually a D2 product from Tiflin. But yeah, Chris Ivory, he's a solid power back.
He's a dual threat. If you look at it, he ran 20 times for 56 yards. Not really impressive, but his receiving, 3 catches, 70 yards. That's impressive, especially when you want a wide back that can both run the ball and let alone hold on to it and gain yardage for you, but also gain it on the passing game too. That's something you really want to see. You see that out of James Conner at Pittsburgh, see that in Chris Ivory, and quite honestly, I see LaShawn McCoy, he's on his way out. LaShawn McCoy, he can run, but he can't catch. And when he does, he only gets a few yards out of it. Chris Ivory knows how to deliver in the clutch.
Now I want to talk about Josh Allen. I think he just surprised him. I think he just shocked him. I don't think he's going to be consistent like this. I just don't think Minnesota was expecting that from him. But I mean, two rushing touchdowns, one passing touchdown, but also 3 picks or 3 fumbles. I'm sorry. I'm not believing the hype yet.
I'm not either. I honestly think Nate Peterman made Josh Allen look a lot stronger. You know, you start Nate Peterman week 1, it's a terrible product out of Pitt, puts him to shame. Then Josh Allen comes up, put up some mediocre points, and all of a sudden he's like the hero of Buffalo. I don't buy into that. I think it's all hype. Yeah, it's all hype. There's nothing behind it, really.
Well, also he has a cannon for an arm, so all of a sudden he's like the next big thing because whoever has a cannon for an arm seems to be the next big quarterback in the league. But another great game this weekend was Detroit Lions over the New England Patriots. Matt Patricia beating his former team. And what are your thoughts about the Patriots this season?
I'm not worried about them yet. I think they're just gonna be a lot more resilient, just come back stronger. They're gonna have a strong, solid game plan. There's no way they're gonna lose next week.
I agree with that statement. I wouldn't count the Patriots out yet. You've seen them overcome a lot of adversity. The thing is, for me, the biggest thing that led to Detroit's upset win was Matt Patricia, the head coach. He knew a lot of the Patriots playbook coming in, whether they changed it or not. He knew the team. He knew what they were coming at him with. I think Detroit had the upper hand going into this one. And that, we always count out Matt Stafford. I honestly think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL, still as of today. But no one gives him the love. He's got Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, and then he's got a lot of, he can utilize a lot of running backs in the backfield, which, granted, it's not as strong as the passing game, but I strongly believe Matt Stafford and the Detroit Lions are one of the most underrated teams of the NFL. Not saying they're going to make a huge playoff push and probably win the next few seasons, but I will say they're a lot stronger than people make them out to believe, and I really think this win over New England is going to help build some momentum going forward. I think they're going to make a great push going on.
Yeah, Matt Stafford, gunslinger, he has the stats. I think the problem is like you were saying, like he just hasn't won yet, so I mean, fans, like, they don't have a reason to believe him. Like, stats, their numbers. We want to see results.
First 100-yard game for a running back since 2013 for Detroit Lions this past weekend. And plus, holding Tom Brady to just 113 passing yards, that's a win in anyone's book. It's just unthinkable.
And here's the thing. People label Brady as the greatest of all time. And I'm going to make a lot of people mad. I don't believe that. I think Brady's terrible. Not terrible. I'm
system quarterback.
Yeah, he's a system quarterback. He's not the greatest of all time. You look at the long list of quarterbacks we've had over time. Brady does not match up to them. It's because of Belichick. It's because of everything that's gone the Patriots' way. The tuck roll. And I know I sound a little biased when I say this stuff, but I don't think Brady is the greatest of all time. And if he was the greatest of all time, he's 41. He'd prove it. He would look strong coming out of the season. But a 1-2 record, he's not the greatest of all time.
Jake Slobotnik, Josh Nist, and great stuff.
Welcome back to IUP-TV's The Big Hit. My name is Elliot Hicks, and I'll be hosting this segment where we're going to talk motorsports in any and all forms. A lot of NASCAR, a lot of F1. My good friends Charles Sandus and Michael Surma. How are we doing, guys?
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. Well, I'm doing pretty hot right now. Just pretty straightforward here to talk about some motorsports.
Yep, going to be exciting. We got
Always underrated.
We got a lot going on in NASCAR right now. The playoffs will head to an elimination race at the all-new Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It'll be race 3 of the playoffs. First of all, let's talk about the Roval. Will this race be a success, or should other oval tracks avoid this kind of experiment? I'll start with you, Charles.
I'm going to be blunt here. It's not the Glen. You see, the Watkins Glen, as we know it, is the best Roval circuit hands down. Maybe Sonoma coming in second place, but where we're going right now is just not a good course to be working with, especially with how the cars are tuned. I mean, you got to think about this in the schematics of it all. They're primarily going left, but with here, you got to work around it sort of like the Daytona 500 with the Le Mans prototypes. It's not a course fit for these types of cars, just flat out.
Well, This whole track's a 2.28 mile, 35-inch elevation change going up the Sonoma turns, I call them there. But this thing's ridiculous. I mean, you have half the oval around Charlotte Motor Speedway and what used to be the night playoff race. So I don't know how it's going to work out, but there's a bunch of cars that crashed during the practice sessions early on in the year. So we'll see how it fits out for the playoffs.
Yeah, and the testing for that track, it was really interesting. There were a lot of guys that wrecked. They couldn't really, I feel like they didn't really test in any big race scenarios, so it'll be real interesting. But in terms of the playoffs, we've had Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch. They've already advanced. Is there a favorite for this race? Who do you think is going to come in victory lane in this race? Do we have any idea, honestly? We don't know about the track. Who could win here?
Yeah, honestly, I got to admit, Kyle Busch, I feel this season has had one too many victories. I don't know how he's doing it in that Toyota Camry.
Well, the big three. I mean, Kevin Harvick's got like 7 or 8 wins. Kyle Busch, Truex has a bunch of wins.
Yeah, I know. It's freaking insane how that's even working out these days. I mean, this season entirely has just been wild, especially compared to the previous seasons where GM just seemed to be dominating the competition with their SS. Nowadays, it's just wild.
Well, Chevy only has 3 wins so far in the year. Larson at Bristol, Elliott at the Glen, which almost shouldn't have happened, and then you have Dillon at Daytona. That shouldn't have happened either. So
yeah,
Chevrolet needs more dominant engines in their car.
A few years ago they were, but now all of a sudden they've just been slipping with their new Camaro.
Z01. It's not looking too good so far.
Maybe they should go back to LS.
Yeah, that's definitely been a bane for Chevrolet, and there's just not as many talented drivers in the Chevrolet loop. Larson just can't get it done in victory lane. Hendrick Motorsports is going through a whole big transition there.
Best guy there is, really.
Yeah, and even Jimmy Johnson's off there. And I mean, with guys like that right now out of the playoffs, you got Clint Boyer, who was he had the most wins outside of the big 3. Jimmy Johnson's out. Eric Jones won at Daytona. He's out. Denny Hamlin's out right now. So
man, I thought he was going to do great at Richmond last week because that's his hometown track. He usually does great on there in Martinsville. Those are his 2 ace tracks, pretty much.
Ultimately, I'm really sad about Jimmy Johnson not being able to make it. I mean,
he's still got a chance. He may come out and win at this Roval.
He's my last little strand from back in the day. It's even worse that he's lost his low sponsorship for next season. He's not getting it back. So if you're getting a scale model kit of Jimmy Johnson, get it now. This will be the last time you get his low sponsorship.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be real interesting there, seeing some of the legends of the sport retire and even fall to lower competition.
So many years in a row, too. You have Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Tony Stewart, and this year you have Jamie McMurray and even Casey Kane, who's not great, but he's really popular with all the fans and everything. And go down to the Xfinity Series, too. Elliott Sadler's leaving. We'll see how that works next year with 4 cars.
Yeah, so transitioning into silly season here, this is one of the biggest years in a while that I can remember for guys changing hands. You got Ryan Newman going to the number 6. We don't know who's going to race the 1 for Ganassi yet. It might be Kurt Busch, might be somebody else. Which of these ride changes do you think will be the most impactful next season?
Well, I feel like whoever gets number 41 is probably going to be a rather interesting change. I mean, it's a wild card number, but hear me out. 41, that's a hard number to claim.
Furniture Row Racing shutting down. Martin Truex Jr. likely going to the 19. And
that's
Joe
huge
Gibbs.
For Suarez.
That's pretty much going to be a super team there.
This reminds me of when Dodge bailed out back in 2015.
Dodge bailed out for like the 3rd time in the last 50 years or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if they eventually come back, which I doubt they will, but maybe at some point we could see a Charger stock car. Or maybe a Challenger for that matter.
We haven't. Dodge ran the Charger for quite a few years there in the Cup Series, and then they started to run the Challenger, I think, their last year in Xfinity. So
that's when they
it was real interesting. Yeah,
we need to see those back. I mean, if you've seen what Chrysler's been doing with the Challenger lately, things have been beefing up.
And I know Charles here, he's got a lot of really, really cool stuff about what's going on in Formula One. Michael, before I hand it off to him, I don't know if there's anything you really want to add to this, or are we just going to kind of let him roll with it?
Well, this Roval is nuts, first of all. It shouldn't be a cutoff race. I mean, you cut out Talladega for the cutoff race.
That's what'll make people watch, I think.
Now you have Kansas being that cutoff for a round of 8. This is absolutely nuts. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I see a lot of cautions coming out.
I really don't have too much input on that because I've never driven the Glen myself. You know,
That'd be
the
really
only
interesting.
course I've driven myself is Sonoma. You know, that's the only one I know that's not.
You've driven at Sonoma?
Yes.
Wow.
That's a little Honda Civic.
Hey, I've got a little Honda Civic too. Those things chug along.
Yeah, but what I mean is Sonoma is a well-balanced course, but...
Oh yeah, well that's Sonoma, Watkins Glen, Road America, those kind of places, they're meant to be road courses. This is taking an oval and running through the infield of it.
Yeah, sort of like what they do with the Daytona 500 with prototypes.
Kind of, yeah. 24 hours.
I think Bowman's an underdog. He might just get a top 5 finish, and I believe he'll move on, but as far as the 4 that won't make it, I think Jones, Hamlin, Blaney will just miss, and Boyer will probably be out too. So I think Jimmy Johnson will just slip in there at the last spot, and you'll actually have 3 Hendricks coming into the round of 12, which will make them look really good based on their year this year. It's been horrible, really.
All right, so like I said, we got a lot of real interesting stuff coming in Formula One, and this is pretty much your feature segment, man. Let's hear it.
We got some big changes coming up for Formula One in the 2020 through 2023 seasons. Pirelli has been asked by the FIA to change their tire compound structure. Now, as we know, Pirelli is pretty notorious for having a really messed up compound structure with Formula One. For what we can see right here in the 2018 season, we have 7 different compounds along with the 2 mandatory rain compounds. We have the following: super hard, hard, medium, soft, super soft, ultra soft, and hyper soft. As we know, most competitions are limiting themselves to soft and super soft because they seem to be the most versatile on the track. Hyper soft and super hard hardly really have a place anymore because of their wear rates. With super hard, the wear rate is too long, limiting the entirety usage of the 2-lane outputs for the pits, and the hyper soft just runs out way too quickly. So Pirelli's thinking about eliminating both the super hard and the hyper soft, just limiting for a hard and an ultra and super soft in comparison with the others. This also makes it much more easier to pick out the tire compounds for Formula One. As we know, teams are limited to 3 types of compounds along with the rain compounds. So that leaves them with 5 compounds to choose from 7. When they get that choice down, it's a much easier choice. In fact, if they get it down to 3, there might not even be a choice at all. It's pretty hard to get around this, especially considering now F1 only has 1 manufacturer for the tires. It used to be back in the early 2000s where you had like 3 manufacturers. You had the following: Yokohama, you had Michelin, and then you also had Pirelli. But after the controversy with Michelin in 2005 where they were making defunct tires, it was strictly limited to Pirelli because they proved to be the most durable out of the 2. Now, unfortunately with that, it also gives Pirelli a dominant structure as to what they say goes in Formula One. So what if you have a tire compound that just suddenly is groundbreaking by somebody like Firestone? I don't know. The FIA is not going to let them go. It's just strictly Pirelli. So I feel like this whole concept of mixing with their compounds is just kind of redundant. I feel like they should bring somebody like Yokohama back in.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see that in NASCAR. It's just been Goodyear for a long time now, so it kind of is a monopoly of sorts on the tires.
Yeah, NASCAR, though, they just have 1 compound.
That's true, that's true.
Moving aside from Formula One, though, we also have developments with GM. GM has recently decided that they might finally unveil the upcoming Corvette C8 chassis, which has been a Corvette we've been waiting for a very long time. This Corvette's very unique in the fact that it is a mid-engine Corvette. This is something we've never seen before, as all Corvettes prior have been FR layout. And as we know, General Motors has really been hyping up competition with Corvette in Le Mans. They have one key disadvantage though, their FR layout. It seems that this layout may finally be mitigated. Unfortunately though, rumor has it that this first trim of the C8 is going to be a Stingray trim. There's no telling or whether or not we'll get a ZR trim yet, but the base price as of now is currently $80,000, just $20,000 shy of the Corvette ZR1, which makes it really interesting to see, because where will it have in the performance spectrum? It's rumored to only have 595 horsepower and it's naturally aspirated, but it does have some upper edge that could give it a little bit of a boost in Le Mans. Recently, GM has made a patent for an electronic clutch system. Now the way this works is that normally clutches are mechanical. So this clutch in particular has an electronic sensor in the clutch pedal that works the clutch actuator digitally through a wireless signal. This is something we've hardly ever seen before, and usually when you have a mid-engine configuration, it's a dual clutch flappy paddle gearbox. So the idea that they'll still have that manual shifter is pretty interesting to say the least. Thoughts?
We'll let the CO performs, really. You can't really tell what it will do until you see what it does.
For now, all we've seen is just a couple mules at the Nürburgring. And so far, we haven't been able to get the lap times of it, but we do know that it does really have good grip as of right now. We're not sure which tires it's going to use, nor whether or not it's going to get different trims, but it makes the current Grand Sport that's just being revealed right now completely irrelevant. I don't even know why General Motors decided to make it.
All right, well, that's some great stuff on motorsports, everything in motorsports with Charles Sandis and Michael Surma. Thanks for tuning in to The Big Hit.